Hi, everyone. Well, now that you had a chance to see it sped up, I thought you might like to see it up close. So that is Brewster Middle School as best as I could render, with the flowing kind of more fallow fields in the springtime. And then, I'm trying to see what I'm doing. It's one of the apple capitals of the United States. There's tons and tons of orchards and apple boxes, and then lots of green glowing fields. Come back out. These are my thought bubbles, and also River Rock heading over to the counseling office inside Brewster Middle School. That's Marcy's room and my scaling exercises that I did a lot with students. And Mount Alta, that is very close, and you can see it from the school. So I chose this for my creative project, I think part of to get a bit out of my comfort zone. Because in some ways, Brewster Middle School was kind of like getting out of my comfort zone. And I wanted to try to capture something that I felt like was really part of my experience, which was like a lot of my commute in and really thinking about everything I'm doing and all the prep. I'd have an hour and a half drive there and an hour and a half drive back. So I had a lot of time to look at the landscape and to really think about my time in that space. So now I want to just go through the questions. So thinking about skills and enhancing my ability to apply them. Being able to practice counseling skills for this age cohort specifically has opened my eyes to what I need to do as a current elementary school counselor with my fifth graders. I feel like a lot has changed since COVID, and the group that I'm seeing right now was during lockdown. They would have been in like second grade, third grade, and my fifth graders would have been kindergartners and first graders. And I'm just seeing these lack of skills in really specific areas depending on what developmental period they missed. So seeing what middle school is like now in 2025 has really opened me up to like what I really need to do for those kids to prepare them in social emotional learning skills and building better behavior expectations in our building. And probably at this point, going up to my own middle school more often to observe. When I think about a significant ethical dilemma, I really paid attention to ASCA B2E. Work responsibly to remedy work environments that do not reflect the ethics of the profession. So Brewster is 90% Latinx, but its staff, administration, and school board are predominantly white. As the political climate shifted and many Brewster families became afraid for their safety, the school leadership did an absolutely poor job responding. Marcy and I had a lot of one-on-one conversations with students and families. Even if we could not get the leadership on board, we could do our best to spread the word on resources for undocumented folks, especially early on in my practicum. That felt really tough to see how my own school district up in Winthrop handled it with a fully across the board response, tons of layers of resources, my own superintendent being very vocal about our support for all students regardless of documentation status. And we only have about 8% Latinx in our schools, to see that Brewster did nothing. That was tough. Cultural competence. So 3 cultural factors that played a role in my work. The first one, race. I don't know if I'll ever work again in a place that is over 90% students of color. That was a really humbling, eye-opening gift to step out of my very white school district and into Brewster Middle School. The next one is class. The stories of poverty I would hear from Marcy and my students was also very humbling. There's a really visceral urge at times to just wrap them up with love and financial stability and take them home, but you can't in reality or ethically. So the amount of food I brought for students surprised me, but it made a huge difference in getting to know each other. I was listening to what their favorite foods were, and I remembered, and I brought it in, and that made a big difference to kids. I also saw the difference in the school districts and the quality of even the school lunches. And so there's a lot of class at play. The last is sexual orientation. So one day while counseling a student for the first time who was gender questioning, I used the word queer out loud several times, as seemed appropriate to like kind of capture the experience. And Marcy remarked afterward, "I never thought I would hear the word queer in these walls." She said that because it feels like such an unsafe and judgmental place for a queer person. And for two clients, the counseling office was the only place their pronouns and like preferred names were respected. So that was a piece that I really felt like I could come in, and I felt a lot of safety in doing that because I'm not reliant on Brewster for my paycheck. And at my school district, we're incredibly LGBTQ plus friendly, safe space to be that. And it's a lot more inclusive. And so I felt really lucky that that got to be my job, but I also completely understood with the kids I worked with, like working on stepping into queer space publicly outside the counseling office wouldn't have been safe. Social justice advocacy. So when the executive orders of the Trump administration first came through, it felt like a real flurry. And while they may have slowed, they are not gone. This is just the beginning of 4 years. And I know my role as a counselor includes staying vigilant for my undocumented students, my gender nonconforming students, and my sexual minority families. Growth and development. What might have I done differently? I would have loved to collaborate more with the high school counselor at least a few times. That is one population I have very little experience with, and my site supervisor had none. So my district really struggles with collaborating across the school levels as well. Like I rarely talk to the middle school counselor. I rarely talk to the high school counselor, and we literally all share a parking lot. So I had sort of hoped that, wow, maybe I'll go to this other district and they will have this figured out. They also don't, though I would say the elementary and middle, those two counselors have like a weekly meeting that they've stayed up on. So that's really cool that they're starting that. I wish that I could have that where I work. I have not had any bites for the other counselors to do that with me. So maybe one day. What you have learned about yourself. I felt like I hit my limit as a human and capacity this term. Full-time job, house and marriage that needs tending, research methods, practicum, residency, commuting an hour and a half each way, 1 day a week, winter blues. I hurt my back really bad. My word, it was a lot. And so in hindsight, it is perhaps what I needed to finally walk through the door to see my own counselor. I kind of scraped rock bottom and saw that, you know what, I need help digging myself out of this. And through that, I felt like I could really empathize with folks who wait until they are truly feeling that rock bottom before engaging in services. And of course, I'm like, why did I wait so long? What have I learned about myself? I have felt more... I wrote this sentence really weird, sorry. I have felt more like my sense of place in this practicum. Like Okanagan County is the largest county in Washington state by landmass. And these different communities are all geologically very separated, but I felt really at home in Brewster and also where I live, and they're so different. And Brewster is the next closest school district. And so we actually do a lot of work with them through athletics, Scholastic Bowl, but there's so many more ways we could be. And I also feel like my place of privilege as a college educated white person and my sense of duty as a competent counselor, like I feel fired up to get to work on systems that can be more connecting for our school districts and also to be more supporting of the places where we're lacking. What have you discovered about areas you'd like to grow and expand? Speaking of growth, systems. So in schools, we all have a tendency to get stuck in the microcosm of our classrooms and limited roles. But if not me, then who will rock the ISM boat? So Brewster really opened my eyes to some of my school's own flaws and transgressions, and I can no longer sit idly by. Luckily, I have a really amazing team with me that sits on my student support team, my nurse, my multi-language coordinator, our SLP, our interventionist. They all feel very similar to me, and so it's been we've sort of collectively felt the groundswell, which is really nice. What will you do during your next field experience to further this? Well, my internship will be held at my school. And as I walk into internship, I also walk into my 4th year as the Methow Valley Elementary School counselor. It would take another 10 minutes to show you like my list of plans for this 4th year, because I feel like I'm really coming into my stride, having now done this for 3. But I do want to shake things up a little bit. So stay tuned. One of those things is we're thinking a lot about transitional kindergarten, and I figured I'm going to get ahead of the game, and I'm going to spend time at our 2 pre-K sites and going and teaching SEL lessons to 3 and 4-year-olds. We don't know who the middle school counselor is going to be next year, but whoever it is supporting him or her in really developing an SEL program to support students. And school-wide restorative justice initiative, we just got a grant for it, and I'm part of one of like the leaders in implementing it at the K-5 level. So very exciting stuff. What did completing this creative project provide that a paper would not have provided? I sat for over an hour and did something creative, and I cannot tell you the last time I did that. So even if it's not personally at all related to like what skills I learned and what, connections I made to these young people, I feel like to me this was about connection to place, and I really appreciated that. How might you use a creative activity like this with clients or students? I really like the idea of like mapping your educational journey, kind of like this. Like, how do you create like a map of where you've been? I've done it for different exercises before in work settings where like we might be talking about gender or talking about financial history and how we might map these different really pivotal moments. Typically it's like with a road. So I did this a little differently. I really wanted to center it around the Columbia River, because that I feel like is the lifeblood of communities that are in the basin. But with my own counselor, actually on Tuesday, we are going to be employing some art therapy. So I am curious to see what I learned from that. Anyway, y'all, it's been an absolute pleasure, and maybe see y'all in internship class supervision.